Right. Miss Georgia, you ready?
Yes, I'm gonna get my camera going.
Perfect. Yeah, let me do the same. Okay. Hi, nice to see you. Your beautiful face. Thank you so much again for joining me. So for all of those who are tuning in, watching after the fact, or they're logged online right now, my name is Amber Com, and I am a parenting practitioner at the Family Resource Center. Myself and my colleague, Miss Anne Marie Diaz, have been running this 4-week workshop of parenting the digitally safe teen. Today's session, we are on session 4, and we are going to be talking about building healthy relationships. So we're going to be talking about building healthy digital habits and strong relationships. So in the previous sessions, we started off talking about the digital landscape and teen brain development, how social media can impact brain development. Then we spoke about social media, mental health impacts, and online identity in week 2. Last week, we spoke about online safety, cyberbullying, and those risks, and how we can prevent any of those risks. We're topping it off or putting the cherry on top today about just establishing healthy digital habits. We spoke about being positive digital citizens last week, sorry, and we just want to make sure that our habits are in line with being those responsible citizens, and that we're also establishing strong relationships with the teens around us, so that they're receptive to the input and constructive criticism that we're giving when it comes to their online usage, right? So I'm very pleased to also introduce our guest speaker today, Miss Georgia Scott. Hi, Miss Georgia.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Okay, so with that being said, we are actually going to just jump right into a video that just speaks about social media and like social life.
I check my phone a lot.
More than I can count.
I check it usually when I wake up in the morning.
Before school, on the bus ride to school.
During school.
A couple times each class.
At lunch.
Probably check it at break. After school.
Walking home.
While I'm doing homework.
I'm constantly checking my phone until I go to bed.
I have definitely been emotionally affected by social media, maybe even depressed. But it's hard to say which causes what sometimes.
Sometimes when I'm sad, I like to communicate with my friends on social media, and that really makes me feel less lonely.
I never really feel depressed or anything like that, just because there's always somebody to talk to and always somebody that's there for you. That's kind of a good thing about social media.
On social media, you can talk to people, but you can't really get your emotion across. I sometimes wish that it wasn't a thing so I could just hang out with my friends and play basketball or do other things like that.
After getting my phone, in-person interactions, it's been replaced by text and call and FaceTime.
Yeah, when I do my homework, my phone is normally next to me, and I definitely do check it, and sometimes I get sidetracked. If my parents saw some of the things that I saw on social media, I think they would be very shocked.
I've heard racist and sexist comments in comment sections. There's a lot of bullying, obviously, that goes on online, which is horrible.
They will comment something rude with language that is offensive, and people make it very personal and hurtful. They just want to invalidate you and your feelings.
I don't really wish for the days when I didn't have my phone, because it gives me so much stuff that I cherish.
The thing I love most about social media is to stay connected with my friends. Over spring break, I broke my phone and I didn't have it for a week and everyone thought I was dead. It was just so impossible to contact me.
I like to make artwork and write, and so sometimes I'll use that as a platform to display my art.
I think I really enjoy social media when I am discussing issues with like-minded people or talking about things I'm very passionate about.
I think it's a mixture of everything that's on social media that makes it so cool. There's like the Snap shows, there's Snapchat streaks.
It's just something that's like a habit to do when I get on my phone.
It's something new. It's always exciting. It keeps your attention, and that constant turnover of adding new things definitely contributes to the amount of time people spend on it.
Okay. So what we heard from that video, or I guess what we can agree on, is that social media is super addictive to teenagers, right? They're speaking about every instance of every day. They're grabbing for their phones. If they don't have the phone, they feel completely disconnected from the world. People assume that they're dead. Like, they're so dependent on their phones. And when you think about, as a parent and our generation as parents, I guess you can say, we went from a place of never not having phones, not even knowing what social media is, to now having to parent teens where their whole life is social media. In the first session we had, when we spoke about how it impacts the brain, teens are going through such a major their brain is developing and transforming in such a complex way right now, and they're really seeking that dopamine hit and to feel included, right? So like, that's exactly how they get that, being online. But there's a lot of reliance on it, and that's what we want to talk about today. It's like, how can we still feel connected? How can we still feel heard and seen and a part of something without constantly being on our phones? Miss Georgia, any thoughts from you? That's a lot of information.
I wish I knew that that was the video that you were going to show, because it just made me nauseous to watch
Yeah.
it. That was really sick and twisted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm going to pivot. That's not what I had prepared to talk about, but I have lots to say. So
That's okay.
I totally agree that social media is addictive and that it is designed to have us as adults and children be addicted to it for all the various reasons, but pretty much the almighty dollar. And how do we substitute that in this world? Very difficult, but we have to have conversations with our kids up front to explain to them what it's actually doing to them. And a lot of times they already know, but they need to know that you know too.
Yeah.
They need to know that you, as their parent or their caregiver, that you understand what they're going through, and you might be addicted to it as well. And maybe, it's a family-wide situation. So I think half the battle is being open to talk to your kids so that they understand that you understand, or they understand that you don't understand, but you have to have a conversation first. And I think that that's important. And I think the second piece to your question, like, how do we get kids to still feel connected? There are a handful of families still around and people that are not on social media. And you have to seek them out, find them on social media. And
yeah, I agree.
And get your
It's
kids
about
involved.
replacing with a healthier,
Yes.
right?
But you got to get your kids involved in other things. So if you go to church or whatever it is, other activities, and there's no shortage of activities on island. Sometimes we think that there aren't, but there are a lot of different things that are going on. If it's even just going to the beach, the phone doesn't need to go with you, and making more deliberate decisions. I had an example, where don't have your phone in your bedroom. Use like an old school alarm clock. Your bedroom is for sleeping. So, but you can't tell your kids that they can't have the phone in the bedroom when you have the phone in the bedroom. So everybody has to commit to it as a family. And I think that that's something. So it's like, okay, we're going to connect at the dinner table, no phone. We're talking at each other. We're looking at each other. We're teaching them skills like making eye contact and speaking, which seems really basic.
But when you haven't practiced it, you lose that skill, right? It's one of those things, you use it or you lose it. So I think it's very important that we continue to encourage these things. But I love that. I love that we're already speaking about that. And I know that our session today will be rich on different ideas on how we can set limits within the household to build positive habits. So based off of that video, what the teens were describing in the beginning were like addictions, right? So there's a lot of compulsive use of checking the social media even when there's nothing new. It's just habitual. Like you pick it up as soon as you wake up in the morning. The first thing you grab is for the phone, right? And just like you said, Miss Georgia, we're very guilty of it too. Like we don't want to feel disconnected, and the first thing we want to do is make sure that we're checking, did we get any message, has anything changed, so we'll grab for that immediately. But the reality is, if there was an emergency, I'm sure people would be able to get in contact with us through a phone call, through something more, immediate, or, sometimes they'll be so addicted to being online that they of course neglect certain responsibilities, like completing homework, doing tasks, sometimes even just the responsibility of taking care of themselves, like satisfying basic hygiene like habits, right? They're just prioritizing the social media use over that. They're also escalating their time spent. So, it's kind of like give an inch, take a mile. Like you give a little more time, and then eventually they're just on the screen, on social media all the time without a conscious intent to do so. So that could look like perhaps you're watching a movie and your phone is there, and then you just habitually keep picking it up every maybe 5-6 minutes or something like that. Yeah, it could be even every 2 minutes.
I see it all the time. Yeah.
All the time, yeah. Even when you go to the movie theater, you've paid your money to go to watch a movie, but you can't not have the phone in your hand or constantly check the phone. Like even an hour and a half movie, like I don't think that there's anything that you're gonna really miss out on that's that dire that you need to constantly be picking up the phone, right? So of course there's just that escalating time spent on it, that emotional dependence. So what we heard in the video, the young lady, if they don't have their phone, they're feeling anxious. People are saying, oh, like she must have died, right? You're just upset when you're not able to connect with people over social media. There's that social withdrawal as well. So again, like you said, not being able to hold a conversation, not being able to maintain eye contact with people because they're just so accustomed to living behind the screen, even a lot of the time too, you'll see people writing the ha 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 LMAO with the big exclamations and stuff too, and then their face is like completely straight too, because they're just not responding. The emotional response is not adding up to the situation because they're just so accustomed to reacting like that online, right? So again, you may see some of those difficulties interacting or being social in real time. We covered already the impact on mental health. So just experiencing like symptoms of anxiety, depression, feeling overly stressed to the point that it becomes, it impacts your daily functioning. And then, of course, ignoring any of the negative consequences that continued social media use can cause. That could be on relationships, on just daily life. It could be even on just physical health as well. That all points to the fact that there may be some addiction there. So with that being said, what we want to do, and I think this is so important, you mentioned this, Miss Georgia, but just having those conversations and saying to your child, hey, I understand what it feels like to be like, to not feel included, to feel lonely, to feel left out. So what we want to do, and I think this is so important when it comes to strengthening the relationship, is ensuring that we're acknowledging or validating their feelings, right? Because what we always say at the Family Resource Center is that every feeling is okay, not every behavior is okay, right? So every feeling, I understand if you're feeling lonely or you're feeling disconnected from your friend circle. And especially when you think about teenagers, maybe they went to different schools, right? They left primary school, they've gone to different schools. Somebody's gone to John Gray, somebody's gone to Clifton Hunter, somebody's gone to a private school, right? You might feel disconnected from somebody who might have been a close friend to you. And when you feel disconnected, you're trying to reconnect and to maintain that friendship somehow. So it's okay to say, hey, I understand you're feeling, low, disconnected from your friend, and really validate and honor that feeling so your child knows it's okay, right? You also, I kind of skipped the first point, but first and foremost, asking open ended questions and not just lecturing your child. So, what that looks like is speaking with your child and not talking down to them, right? There's a big difference if I'm not level at this on the same level with my child, if I'm dominating the conversation and I'm just lecturing. Instead, we want to make sure that the communication has a sender and a receiver that's going back and forth, right? Not just parents sending, and you're not receiving anything from your child, or your child doesn't feel comfortable to send either. So you want to ask those open-ended questions and really get a feel of, hey, why is your social media, why are you always on the phone? Why are you always posting on Instagram, and not just lecture. You can be posting on Instagram so much, that's bad for you. You always on this phone. You need to focus on your books that more than what you focus on your phone. And I've seen it. I've experienced it myself too. But I feel like if the approach was different, I might have like been a lot more open and forthcoming, right? You also want to share your own experience, because when you're able to relate and say, hey, like I've been there, a lot of the time people are more receptive to that, or they'll have more of a buy-in and be like, yes, you know what I've gone through. So, they feel like they can definitely, you can just relate to one another. You also want to separate the behavior from the child, right? So that might be your child is always on the screens. You don't all of a sudden want to like just say, oh, your child is a bad child, right? Maybe the behaviors or the habits are not the best, and those might be bad habits, but you don't want to all of a sudden label your child as bad, right? Because children oftentimes become what you say. So you want to ensure that you're keeping the behavior separate from the child. Then, and what we're going to speak a lot on today is co-creating the solutions. So when we talk about problem solving or coming up with a solution, it shouldn't just be the parent that says, hey, this is what we're going to do. Because a lot of the time when you're just told you need to do this, you need to do that, and you don't have a say in it, you just feel like you're being bossed around. And a lot of the time, especially our teenagers who are very, I guess I can say determined at times, they are going to just feel like they're in a power struggle. And every child, whether they're the 8-year-old child or the 15-year-old child, want to have a say and feel like they have power, and they just have control over something that's happening in their life. So what you want to do is collaboratively try to identify a solution. So co-creating solutions could look like parent who says, hey, how about we do this way, and then you're talking with your child and your child says, oh, I don't really think that I can just do an hour on the screen each day because I have to do homework on my screen. So can I do homework for 1 hour and then have free time for an hour, as an example? And that way, once the child has co-created the solution, they have more of a buy-in and they feel more motivated to follow through with that solution, right? Then the next point, my third from the bottom, is looking at introducing other rewarding and healthy activities. So just like me and you said earlier, Miss Georgia, you want to replace that time on social media with other healthy, enjoyable activities. So like you said, it could just be getting involved with church, right? Maybe, yes, you've gone to church, but your child hasn't gotten involved in and like going to youth group on a Friday, as an example. Maybe they want to like start a basketball group with the church youth group. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of ways to think about healthy activities, and that's the reality. A lot of people, if you're not automatically presented with a healthy activity and you don't know it exists, a lot of the time we may not go searching for it. But there are a lot of different things to do in Cayman. There's swimming, there's clubs through school, there's a lot of different things that are offered. I mean, I know in Cayman cost is a big thing, but even if cost is a an issue, there's always ways to go about fundraising to meet costs, getting sponsorships for certain things, or even just coming up and doing free things on your own, right? Like in my neighborhood, all of the kids after school, they all gather at one person's house and they play basketball on the road, you know? Socializing does not always have to cost money as long as it's safe, right? So yeah, and we also want to reward so that we can also build those habits. So an example of that might be, okay, if your child goes outside and they play in the yard for 30 minutes, maybe that means that they can get an extra 15 minutes on the tablet, and you kind of almost incentivize so that your child can follow through with whatever it is you want them to do, and then they realize, oh, this isn't so bad. And after a while, you can kind of get rid of the rewards, right? But it's almost like first dangling the carrot just so that they'll go after it, and just exposing them to those new activities. You also want to help to curate positive feedback. So it's very important to reinforce the positive habits that you're seeing and help them also speak positively about their own actions. Because when you say positive things are happening, kids want to hear that they're doing things well. Everybody likes positive feedback. And I always give the example of, if I'm on a job and my boss isn't telling me that I'm doing a good job, I'm not going to feel very motivated to keep doing stuff, right? So it's the same thing with our kids. They want to know or get that positive feedback so they can continue to keep doing positive stuff. But the reality is, especially as teenagers, mommy and daddy are not going to be there for the rest of their lives. So we also want them to speak positively about their habits and like, wow, you know, I've been doing really well with my screen time. I actually didn't even sign on at all today. Like, and helping them recognize the positives out of it, right? And then, of course, prioritizing real world connection. So that is actually something we're going to be talking about today. How in our families are we going to prioritize real world connection? And that may very well be just through setting some expectations or establishing some limits within the family, right? So what we're going to do is look at establishing or making a family media plan. So I'm going to play this video now. And while I'm playing the video, I'm also going to put a template in the chat for all participants to access. And we're going to talk about the templates after. So feel free to load those up while the video is playing.
Welcome to the Family Media Plan, where you can easily create a personalized plan that works within your family's values and busy lifestyles. The tool is available in English and Spanish. Want to use the tool like an app on your desktop? Simply click on the icon in your browser and select Install. This will allow instant access to your plan anytime, anywhere, and from any PC with an internet connection. On your mobile phone, if you have an Android, simply use Chrome to navigate to the Family Media Plan. Once there, scroll down and select Add Family Media Plan to home screen. You can also tap the three-dot overflow menu in the top right corner and select Install App. Chrome will add the application shortcut to your home screen. For iOS users, navigate to the Family Media Plan in Safari, then tap the Share button, tap Add to Home Screen, then tap Add. The Family Media Plan will show up on your home screen like a native iOS app. Here's how it works. To get started, create a profile for each member of your family, adults too. Include their names and ages. You can even add fun avatars for each family member. Add as many family members as you need. Click or tap on the Continue arrow to move through the tool. Next, you will find a list of media priorities to choose from. They are all selected by default, but you can unselect them if you prefer to choose only those priorities that are most important to your family. Click or tap Continue. The tool will now move you through each priority you selected and offer ideas and tips to help you make the plan work for your family. The progress bar above shows the priorities you selected. Click on any of those to move forward or back through the tool. You can even go back and add priorities if you skipped any. On each priority page, you'll see a list of ways to implement these priorities. Simply click or tap on the Reasons Tips button on each suggestion to learn why it's important, along with how to make it work and other helpful tips. Tap or click on which child you want to apply the suggestions to. You can easily select them all at once or clear and choose one at a time. Once you've gone through each priority, you're ready to review your family media plan. Each family member has a tab with the tips you selected. You can choose to print your plan, or if you are logged in, you can easily share your plan by email or text. If you have not registered on healthychildren.org, don't worry, it's quick and free. At any point you decide to make changes to your plan, simply go back in, make your desired changes, and review. In fact, it's a good idea to update your plan for things like school breaks or as your children get older. Another great idea? Print your plan and hang it on the fridge or somewhere in your home to remind you and your family about your plans. Get started today and put the family media plan to use in your family.
Alrighty, so that's a wonderful tool that just helps you to come up with a family media plan. In the chat, I also put the family media plan contract. So if you're not inclined to use that website or that tool, let me just load up here. So another thing that I put in the chat is our household media rules. I'm just going to come back to that. But our media plan can look like, so our media plan, let me just open it up here and share this on my screen. Sorry, 1 second. All right, let me just share that. Okay, so here we have our media plan. So our media contract, and pretty much it looks at what are the time limits going to look like for, here it reads, I will use blank for a maximum of blank hours a day on weeknights. So that could be the computer, the tablet, the phone. I will be allowed to use the phone as an example for a maximum of blank hours on weekends. So you're differentiating what weeknights will look like, what weekends will look like, and when kids will put away the phone. Then we also look at what's appropriate content and sharing. So just establishing, okay, I'm not allowed to access Snapchat as an example, and also making sure that they're not hurtful or mean to others on social media. And that includes messaging, commenting, posting, liking mean or hateful comments. Because another thing that we encourage is it doesn't even have to be you who initiates something, but seeing something like mean comments or a mean picture posted or mean video posted online, liking or commenting or resharing it could almost be condoning it, right? Or even sometimes when you see things and you don't click away, you're viewing it and not saying something can be interpreted as acceptance of that person's actions, right? So when we think about safety, and in our last, in the video, it said that 2 of 4 students had reported being exposed to some form of hateful comments. And what we know is that I think even stats in Cayman show that 80% of kids that did the Cayman Islands Student Drug Use Survey, the SISTAS, quite a few of them had reported experiencing bullying online, but also being exposed to like risky information based on information we got. So when we think about safety, we want to ensure that kids know exactly how to be safe when they're on social media. So making sure they know not to give away any personal information, disclosing any revealing information like their name, date of birth, where they live, even their school, right? Not sharing their location while using the device. So just being mindful of like, what are their location sharing settings on the device? Not sharing their password with anyone outside of their family, and also ensuring that they adjust the privacy settings on their device so that they can monitor, that the parent can monitor the activity and know that this is just for safety reasons. It's not because we don't trust them, but we just want to ensure that they're doing the right things that they should be doing, right? Then I think it's very important to also, we speak about cyberbullying here to the right. Also making sure that they know not to share any content that could expose their body, and not sending any inappropriate photos or messages. So even in last week's session, we spoke about some of those terms like sexting, sexual exploitation, and stuff like that that can happen online. So with all of that being established, we also want to ensure that our media contract speaks to consequencing, right? All of this is outlined to ensure our teens' safety, but should they not follow through, what's going to be the consequence? And that could be the privilege of the device is taken away, right? And we also, when we're consequencing too, we also want to ensure that we're setting a time period so that our kids don't feel like sometimes we'll act out of emotion, and if we see something that we don't agree with, we can be like we take away the phone and we say, we are never getting this phone back, right? When the reality is that's not true. We will be giving it back at some point in time. So what we can do is say, because of your actions, because of this that you've done online, maybe it could be posting a hateful comment, I'm going to be taking the phone away for the next 3 days, right? We want to quantify it so that our children know, if they do something wrong, that's pretty much the time frame that they're looking at the privilege removal, right? So I have put this in the chat. Please feel free to download it, and we can continue to speak through some of our other rules. So, okay. So here I also put this household media rules sheet that we made. So of course we want to establish where and when are the appropriate times to use social media at home. So of course we may want to set establish no-go zones. So it could be the eating area, like the dining table. And that's what you said, Miss Georgia, is like you want to establish areas where you just absolutely don't use any screens. So the dining table would be a no-go place. Maybe the car, like in the car, like we're on a drive, there's so much to see and to take in. We're in the same car, right there connected, a wonderful time for a nice conversation. The cars may be a no-go for screens. And the bedroom too, because when your child starts to establish the habit of sitting in bed and aimlessly scrolling, then of course that can just kind of feed into those addicting habits, right? So maybe we could say the bedroom is a no-go area. And then we can also elaborate and say, okay, so if these are no-go areas, you are allowed to use the phone in the living area whenever you go out somewhere else, but not in the car ride, right? You're able to use the phone anywhere else apart from dining room, car, and bedroom, right? Then just like we had in our media contract, we speak to devices being put away or the screen time being off by a certain time each day. And I think it's very, very important when we establish our media rules. It's not, as you can see, it's not as comprehensive as our media contract, because that has all of the details in the media contract, but our household media rules are just kind of it's our guidance on how we're going to operate based on the media contract. So our rule in our household would be the devices are put away or given up at, example, 7 o'clock each night, right? And each day, the weekday, my screen limit is 2 hours. Weekends, my screen limit is 3 hours. And then, of course, we want to establish we have fun in our family. We have fun family time every week without screens. So that could be on a Friday evening, from 5 to 7, we have established family time. And during that fun family time, it's screen free, right? So that could be some of the expectations that you set out in your house, but it's very, very important to have them written so that you can hold your kids accountable to that, right? If they're not written, then it's going to be assumed. And the reality is assumptions are oftentimes not right. Oh, and you'll hear the things like your teen saying, oh, well, I thought that I could have, because it's the weekend and I already did what I needed to do in the week, I thought that it wouldn't be a problem for me to be on my PS5 all day, right? And that's exactly why what we need to set those limits and establish the rules. No, even if you're doing what you have to do, what you should have done during the week, that doesn't mean now that it's a free for all on the weekend. We still have to build healthy habits with screens, right? Miss Georgia, so you kind of spoke to some of these before. Anything, this is I guess an appropriate time to add anything like based on your, so first and foremost, could you perhaps give us an introduction to, who you are, what you do?
Sure.
Yeah.
So I actually went through the Family Resource Center SNAP program with my eldest son. So I have 3 kids. I have a preteen, a 10-year-old that's going on 40, and I have a 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. So initially for me, um, I had a no screen house. We had no screens, no TV, no laptops, no tablets, no phones, no screens. The only screens in the house were my phone, and my work laptop. Like that was it, and I didn't use it around them. We used to have screens, and I found that that was a really big problem. So we went cold turkey, no screens, and it's obviously easier when they're younger. But it allowed me to kind of figure out a new game plan because I was just like, I'm going to shield and protect them. I work in compliance. I know firsthand about the sextortion scams, pig butchering scams, and what screens are doing to the world and our children. So I was very concerned about everything. And the best thing I could do was just like, no screens, but that's not realistic. So now I'm at a place where I am reintroducing screens, but on my own terms. And so I've done a lot of homework and research as to how I can best position this for my kids because yeah, they need the screens. I don't think they needed it at a young age, but now I understand why. So for me, we have a couple of things that we do. So there's a laptop now for my eldest. The other 2 still don't have screens, but for my 10-year-old that is quite mature, we have a laptop and it's in the living room. So what he sees, we see. I will say that there was my girlfriend who has an 18-year-old was like, yeah, well, my son was watching porn on the living room laptop, and none of us knew, and we were walking by him every day. And so she made me think more. So
Mhm.
this led me to the fact that it's about a conversation. So if you can't talk to your kids about like real life shit, sorry, real life stuff, and then it's going to be very difficult to talk to them about screen usage and social media. So
Mhm.
what I did was I'm a big proponent. I would like my kids and anybody that's close to me, I'd rather you hear it from me first than hear it on the street. So
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time talking to my kids and educating them myself because I already know they're going to get the street education, which may not be
Yeah.
the education I want them to get.
Yeah, it's not a
So
reputable source, right?
it's
And
not,
then one of the
not.
things when we did session one of this, I always want parents to remember your influence on your child, right? When you ask kids a lot of the time, maybe not in the teenage years, but you're still so influential to them. Like if you say the world ended, they're probably going to believe you. You
Yeah,
told them
yeah.
Santa was real. The tooth fairy took your teeth and left you money, and your kids believed you. So there's a lot of power when you, as a parent, connect with your child and you're like, I know that you like being on the screens, or you've seen something you haven't seen before that you shouldn't have seen, like porn as an example. And you say to them that I know that may have evoked certain feelings in you, but it's not okay, right?
Well, what I will say, Amber, as Caribbean people, we don't talk about shit, stuff. Dang, we don't talk about stuff. So
Yeah,
sorry, apologies.
that's okay. That's
We don't
okay.
talk about these things. And it gets me so frustrated because my own parents didn't talk to me about anything. I just learned as I went along. It's just the culture. We're not
Mm-hmm.
talking. And that's a
Yeah.
huge problem. And
Yeah.
because we ourselves don't feel comfortable talking, it's at the detriment of our children. So
Yeah.
I had to talk to my son when he was 8 about porn, and people are like, "Oh, you talked to him about porn?" Yeah,
Yeah.
because I heard that the kids at Red Bay Primary were talking about it. So I need to talk to him about it. And I
Yeah.
need to recognize that I need to have these conversations sooner
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I can't wait too long because then he's going
Yeah.
to learn it the way that they're going to teach it to him. So I
Yeah.
had to get
Correct.
very creative. I found books. There are like
Mm,
really good books about it, like
mm,
good pictures, bad pictures up until like
yeah.
age 4. And we will say, but that's not right. But it's already happening.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
and that's
sooner
the
we get
thing.
to the reality of like, listen, this train is going. Unless
Yeah,
you're homeschooling your kids and locking them away from
yeah,
society, it's already happening. So
yeah,
what
and it
kind of
could be.
conversation are you gonna have?
Yeah, I totally agree, Miss Georgia. And it could be anywhere. It could be something as simple as this Saturday. I think Rotary is doing gifts for the kids at the park. You don't know which kid is going to be there, and just saying, like, your
Yeah,
child is playing on the playground with them.
yeah,
As much as you want to shield them, they are going to get exposed to this information one way or the other. It could even be if they are using the tablet, sometimes even on YouTube Kids, there may be something that comes across, like,
yeah, yeah,
it could be anywhere.
for
So
sure.
yes, that I
So
just
you have to establish a baseline and having the conversation because nothing will happen if you, and then what I will say, and I use my own personal experience as a child growing up, I was not close to my parents, but I was close to my
Mhm.
aunts. So
Yeah,
your kid may not be, and I get, as parents, they should be, but they may not be, but they have to
maybe
know
not.
where they can go. So if
Yeah,
they can't feel comfortable talking to you, they have to have other options of who they can talk to. Is it auntie? Is it godmother, godfather? Is it that you have, a list of resources on the fridge, like Alex Panton Foundation, whoever, the hotline, but they
yeah,
have to know that they can talk to somebody, or is it their peers? But which peers are the right peers that can talk to them?
yeah,
So it's really important that communication is happening, and it's not
mhm,
realistic to say that that communication is always going to come from a parent. And I
mhm,
get that, this is a family resource center, but sometimes
yeah,
your kid just isn't trying to hear it from you. So who
yeah,
are they going to hear it from? And you have to make
yeah,
sure that you have backups. If it's not me, if it's not daddy, if it's not aunt, there's a whole bunch of people, it takes a village that they can go to talk to about these things that are all singing the same thing. So it's a family thing. It's not so much
yeah.
just a parent thing.
I totally agree. But also to that point, I would also say if your child is not trying to hear it from you, one of the things you have to do is really focus on building the relationship with your child so that they will be receptive to you. Because that is the reality, Miss Georgia. Your kids may not want to hear it from us, but that might be because of maybe a preconceived like thought they have. They think, oh, like my parent is gonna just be lecturing me, or they already don't, they're just annoyed with me on my screen all the time. So they've kind of just assumed that your approach is gonna be a certain type of way. But when you approach the situation like valuing the relationship that you have with your child, and you go in and you're calm, cool, and collected, and you're trying to just ask those open-ended questions, you're acknowledging or validating their feelings, and your child feels seen and heard, they are going to be a lot more likely to engage with you. I'm not going to say, and it's not going to happen the first time you try to have a conversation. They may not be really into it or whatever, but it's also not going to be just one big conversation that you have with your child either. Because when we talk about any sensitive topic, it could be, maturing, developing, it could be on physical safety, online safety, whatever the case is, when you're talking to your child about something important, it's very important to keep the conversation going. And it's not just the big conversation, but it could be the little instances. We're in the car driving to school in the morning, oh, and you talk about something. Then, it could be us watching a movie together one day and you kind of notice something and you kind of have a little talk here and there, right? So I think it's very important to try and strengthen the relationship too, so that the child can be somewhat receptive to mom and dad. And also just like ensure your child understands that you're doing this because you care about them, right? It's not from a place of control, wanting to control and dominate them, but it's really because you care about them and you want to teach and guide them to have healthy digital habits, right? Because and again, we always use the saying, mommy and daddy are not going to be there forever. So once mom and dad are not there to kind of say, hey, let's do this, kids have to build their own self-discipline, right? So I think it's very important for us to kind of strengthen our relationship with them. Um, so I have a slide here on the cybersecurity task force. Can you speak to that a bit more, Miss Georgia?
Sure. So, a group of cybersecurity folks here in the Cayman Islands have started this task force, or they're in the works of trying to start a movement on family cybersecurity. And so the focus is on digital safety, digital literacy, digital responsibility, but the key word, it's from a family perspective. So we do a lot for the kids. They take online courses at school to teach them about cyber safety. And we're telling the kids, do this, do that, do this, do that. Don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. And then we say, okay, go off. And we hope that they do what we tell them to do. And there's a disconnect where it really is a whole family. So it's the parents, it's the relatives, it's a community effort. And so sometimes we ourselves as the parents need to be more involved in how we're running the whole show from a digital perspective in our household. So I liked what you're showing me with like the digital parenting plan, because I think that that's something that would be included in this. So for the family cybersecurity, what we're trying to do is have parents come in and we meet the parent at their level. So a parent like me who was no tech that's starting to go into tech, every family, every household will have its own set of rules, its own set of values, cultures, customs. So how do we meet that to achieve security for the whole family? Children, adults, and everybody included, and building those healthy habits. So there are different ways to do that. There will be programming for that. And sometimes it's going to be, well, let's assess where you're at first. Where are you trying to go? And instead of just giving things to the kids to do and teaching them, it's also going to help you as an adult, as a parent, as a family, of what you need to do as well. So I had to learn this, and I kind of was a guinea pig for Rob, who this is his kind of project that he has launched, where it was like I went from no tech to now introducing tech in a more thoughtful way that aligns to what's happening in our house and our family and our values and our culture. So it's an interesting concept. And another part of it is that they want to expand this to include a youth advisory council. Other jurisdictions have something similar. So when kids and teens are talking to other kids and teens, they're going to likely listen a little bit more because their peers are telling them the same thing. So the idea is to mentor young people that want to get into cybersecurity, that want to get into these type of professions, so that they can go out to then teach the other teens, okay, these are the things to do, not to do. And that's from a core safety perspective. But then we have to also look at that emotional aspect. We have to look about, the brain development and this sort of thing as well. So there are different aspects to what we're trying to achieve with family cybersecurity. And this kind of came out of, I'm not sure if those of you on the call were aware, the Cayman Islands now has a very loose cybersecurity association. And so this was came out of this cybersecurity association as one of the subcommittees for training and awareness to the community. So we know the government has different initiatives like CyberSafe. There's a lot of good things in a lot of different areas and different places, but we're hoping that family cybersecurity, as it says, brings families together, and we're not just looking at training and talking at the kids, but it's everybody coming together to come up with what works. So this digital parenting plan and family household rules, it fits very nicely into the concept of what we're trying to achieve.
Amazing, amazing. So even my question, and I think it's great for the caller or those who are tuned in to also know, does family cybersecurity also help with putting in, like, I guess, like not safe, like safety measures on devices? Yeah.
No,
so
they're not trying to turn into what they will do is help you go about it. Right?
Yeah.
So like that's what Rob did to me. He's not going to come to my house and set up all the cybersecurity measures on my laptop. No, but he's going to point me in the right direction, tell me. But here's the thing. This is the point that I had to learn. I'm just like, oh, just get somebody to come in and do it. And I'm not learning myself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not taking the time to understand
he's really
myself.
Guiding. The guidance is there.
It's a guidance. It's a guidance because it just like we have to, just like your kids need the buy-in, we also need the buy-in too. We need to know and buy into the whole system. We can't outsource it. It's our family, our kids, our house. our eyes looking at the screens too. And that was very difficult for me to transition, because I'm just like, well, just hire somebody, put in the, lock it all down, whatever, do it.
Yeah.
And no. So now I'm actively like, okay, this is how I'm going to create it, because it's not a one size fits all depending on your family and what you guys do, So it's nice that they helped guide me. And I pitch it, and I'll be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking. So I was the guinea pig, so it's like a one-on-one type of thing, and we're still trying to recruit and grow it to have more volunteers to support. We've been reaching out to the schools, one of the private schools. We're trying to talk with the government schools, because again, this is not just my son comes home from Red Bay Primary and says, yeah, I hate the online training, Mom. I just click, and they tell me don't click on stop, and I don't understand what they're talking about. Click. What did they mean? And now I can have better conversations. And now I can say and identify, okay, that method isn't working for my kid, but all the kids learn differently. They look at things differently. They value different things. And we as adults do too. So, we're asking our kids to do things that we may not even do for ourselves. Like things like that, I had to take a step back and say, okay. And so what Rob and the team there have done is help me create a path that works for me and my family and my kids, and what we do and what we don't do already, even without the tech.
That's wonderful. Yeah, I'm so happy that you're able to elaborate on that, because I think when you're starting from scratch and you have no idea how these things work, how do privacy settings, how do screen time monitors, how do you block certain things on phones, it can feel really overwhelming. And just like you said, it's like we're really eager to just want to pay somebody, get it done, and we just, okay, that's it. No, I know my child can't go on that anymore. But not only, and I think when we think about the golden standard of keeping our kids safe online, it's going to be, yes, setting those, making sure we have those permissions are in place, or those privacy things put into place, or block certain things, but also in educating them and make sure they know what is right from wrong, what is approved within our household, and what we value in our household, right? So thank you so much for that, Miss Georgia. Before we end, one of the things I spoke about before is just rewarding and charting. I did put this into the chat as well, our screen time reward chart, because as I said, we want to ensure that we're incentivizing and reinforcing the positive, right? So initially what we want to do, this is just an example I have on my screen here, but it says, okay, reach the goal of maximum blank hours of screen time, browse appropriate website or apps, followed screen-free zone rules, access educational content, and took physical activity breaks from screens. All of these seem so simple, right? But when we're establishing a reward chart, we want the goals to be very achievable so that our kids can feel accomplished when they achieve these simple, easy tasks, right? So what we would do is establish this reward chart, and every time our child does one of these things, we would just give them a tick, and then collaboratively with our child or children, establish what the reward is going to be based on the amount of points that they got, right? So an example, I have 5 things here, and my child might get 3 of them. If they get 3, that might be 10 additional minutes on the screen. If they get all 5, it might be 30 additional minutes on the screen. So you can even use that privilege of screen time to reward responsible screen time, right? And then as time goes on and they're building healthier habits around screens, you can then make the goals harder and to kind of like make them harder for them. Like, I access educational content for 30 minutes straight, right? With no distractions. So then you can continue to build on those habits that you've established from the baseline, right? So that's a really wonderful tool to just reinforce positive screen usage. Then I have just a little summary here for us of just what we're encouraging to keep children or teens safe online, right? So again, making sure that you have those black and white online rules. We have that template in the chat now, but please feel free to connect with us, and we can also establish those online rules that are fit for your family. reward or consequence the not or following of rules. So that's very important. Consistency is key. If your child is not following the rules, you can't just not do anything, because then they're never gonna feel, I guess you can say, the sting and feel like the rules matter, right? If you're not rewarding or consequencing, children are not going to value the rules, right? So we want to make sure that we're always responding to whether they're doing what they should be doing or if they're not doing what they should be doing, right? And consistency is key. So an example, if my child was previously using he or she was on Instagram all weekend, like from the moment they wake up 9 o'clock in the morning till 12 o'clock midnight, and they're on their phone the entire time on the weekend. And we've had a discussion when we said, hey, I think that we need to reduce, rather than being on the phone all day on a Saturday. How about we say, okay, we go to 5 hours for the day. You can have it leisurely for 5 hours, right? But that you've had that conversation and your child goes back to using it for 12 hours that day, you're not following through with what we've discussed. So there has to be a consequence. And if you don't consequence and you're very lax or permissive on that, it's one of those things, you give an inch and take a mile. You don't do anything, then your child is definitely going to try to get away with it next time, right? So you have to be very consistent with your approach. The third tip we have here is to approve and supervise. So making sure that you're up to date with what is it that your child is doing online. We gave a really wonderful website last, I think, 2 sessions ago. I'll put it in the chat at the end. But we want to just make sure that the apps, the games, any of the content that our children are taking in, it's age appropriate and it's in line with what our family values, our family rules. Once it's approved too, you also want to make sure that there's consistent supervision to ensure that those things don't evolve into something that becomes unsafe. So even a lot of like the kids games that we've seen nowadays, it could be even Roblox. There are some ways that kids will get around it, and they will maybe play inappropriate music, or they're having or using inappropriate language, or whatever the case might be. So that may very well warrant discussion with your child. Ensure that parental controls are in effect. So thankfully to family cybersecurity, we may have some guidance to get those parental controls in effect. But even just utilizing YouTube or connecting with one of us at the Family Resource Center, that can definitely, we can assist with that. And then of course, making sure our family media plan reflects the screen use, the time and zone. So how much time they should be using it on set days, and also where and when they can use it. Okay. So that's pretty much a summary of what we've covered today. And I think that is it for now. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to just put it in the Q&A, and also drop it in the comments if you're watching this after the fact. Miss Georgia, I would just ask one final question to you.
Sure.
If parents take nothing else away, what do you think is the most important thing that parents keep in mind as they empower children to make safe and healthy choices online? What would you say is the most important?
It's having those important, like having an open relationship and talking about things like openly, not closed. That's the most important thing, I think. I mean, and if you have young children now along with teens, start from young. Be open with your kids. Don't hold back. If they can't talk to you freely, they'll talk to somebody else. That's the basis for everything, not just cyber, like every other aspect. Like you have to have a good relationship, and that you can have your falling outs and stuff, but they have to know and feel that they can trust you to come to you when there is a problem. And that starts from very young, but it can always turn around if you don't have that right now. But like, talk to them. If you don't talk to them, then you're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I totally agree. Talk it up. We always say talk early, talk often.
Yeah. And it has to be like a two-way street. You give your own experiences, like make it relatable. Like tell them when you were a kid, tell them the challenges that you have with social media and technology. Like be open. It can't be, I am the mother and you are the child. That's how my mother was. And I don't talk to her like that. I don't include her because it's challenging. So yeah.
Yeah, because you felt like
Yeah,
somebody was talking down to you and not talking with you and trying to
exactly.
hear and see you. And that's a
Exactly.
make it or break it for a lot of kids, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, I
As
totally
humans,
agree.
all of us, nobody likes it. So they don't like it
Yeah.
either. They're people too.
Yeah. Yeah, I always think about it from like if my manager were to treat me like that, I wouldn't be very receptive of any feedback she gave, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, building on that relationship is super, super important. And what I will end off with today is if it could be communication skills, it could be building on the relationship, it could even be establishing a family media plan, establishing the reward chart to build on healthy habits, social media habits. If this is something that you would like support on, please feel free to connect with the Family Resource Center for support. So you can scan the code that's on the screen, or also join our WhatsApp channel, which will be on the next page. So this scan here on the current screen takes you to our website, which is frc.gov.ky. I can put that in the chat. And then our WhatsApp channel also has all of our upcoming parenting programs and services. So we are going to be running this Parenting the Digitally Safe Teen next January as well. So if you know a friend, family member, colleague who could benefit from this sort of information, then please have them, reach out to us by our email, frc@gov.ky, or, even follow our WhatsApp channel or check us out on Instagram or Facebook. We're pretty up to date on all of those. And with that being said, we are finished. Here is our contact information. Before you sign off, I'm kindly asking everyone who is currently on to please fill out the poll that I'm launching right now. It's just 4 quick questions that gives us some feedback on how the session was for you. So once you've filled out the poll, please also remember to download any of the resources that I put in the chat. If you also have a question, please put in the Q&A or utilize comments if you're watching this after the fact. Thank you. Have a wonderful day, all. Thank you so much, Ms. Georgia, for joining me today.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yep, I'm so happy to hear. My apologies. So happy to hear about the task force. I think that's much needed. I think a lot of people could benefit from this for sure.
I agree.